The massive view screen in Earth's Defense Council chamber showed the stern face of Admiral Duhyun. His golden uniform sparkled with medals, and his eyes held no warmth. The council members sat in silence as they watched the Empire's message. "People of Earth," Admiral Duhyun said, his voice deep and clear. "For 50 years, you have refused to join the Galactic Empire. You stay alone while 10,000 worlds work together. This must end." General Jae-yun, the head of Earth's Defense Council, leaned forward in her chair. Her gray hair was tied back neatly, and her face showed no fear. She had dealt with the Empire's threats before, but this time felt different. "We offer you one last chance," the Admiral continued. "The Empire will send its 10 greatest warriors. They come from 10 different worlds, each with powers you cannot imagine. We challenge Earth to send its champions to face them in combat." The council room filled with whispers. Some members looked worried, others angry. General Jae-yun raised her hand, and everyone fell quiet. On the screen, Admiral Duhyun smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. "If your champions win, Earth can stay independent. If they lose, you will join the Empire. You have no choice but to accept." The screen went black. For a moment, no one spoke. "They think we'll send a team of soldiers," said Colonel Kim-mo, hitting the table with his fist. "They want us to match their 10 warriors with 10 of our own." General Jae-yun stood up slowly. She walked to the window and looked out at the city below. The sun was setting, and lights were coming on in the tall buildings. Somewhere out there was the person they needed. "No," she said quietly. "We won't send 10 warriors. We'll send one." The room exploded with noise. Council members jumped to their feet, shouting that it was crazy, that it would never work. Only Major Sunma, the youngest person in the room, stayed quiet. She watched General Jae-yun carefully. "General," Sunma said when the others had calmed down, "you already have someone in mind, don't you?" Jae-yun turned back to face the council. Her eyes were bright with determination. "Captain Hansel," she said, "the Empire thinks they understand humans. They think they know our strengths and weaknesses, but they don't understand what makes us different." She pressed a button, and a hologram appeared in the middle of the room. It showed a soldier of average height and build. Nothing about Captain Hansel looked special or impressive. "Look at their message again," Jae-yun said. "The Empire is proud of having warriors from different worlds, each with unique powers. But that's their weakness. They don't understand that humans don't need special powers. We have something better." Colonel Kim-ho frowned. "What do you mean?" "We adapt," Jae-yun said simply. "Every failure makes us stronger. Every defeat teaches us something new. The Empire's warriors will each fight differently, use different powers, and with each fight, our champion will learn, adapt, and grow stronger." She looked at each council member in turn. "Captain Hansel has the highest adaptation scores ever recorded. Not the strongest, not the fastest, but the best at learning from every situation." Major Sunmai stood up, her eyes wide with understanding. "The Empire thinks this is about showing strength," she said, "but you're planning to show them why humans are different." General Jae-yun nodded. "They'll send their greatest warriors to crush us. We'll send one person to show them why forcing humanity to join the Empire would be their biggest mistake." She looked back at the hologram of Captain Hansel. "Send the message to Admiral Duhyun," she ordered. "Tell him Earth accepts the challenge, and when he asks how many champions we'll send, tell him, humans only need one." The council members looked at each other. Slowly, one by one, they began to smile. They didn't just have a plan now. They had a way to show the Empire exactly what humanity was capable of. Captain Hansel stood at attention in General Jae-yun's office, looking out the large window at the Empire's massive battleship that hung in the sky. It was bigger than any building on Earth, and its dark metal surface reflected the morning sunlight. "You understand why we chose you?" General Jae-yun asked, studying Hansel's face carefully. "Yes, General. Hansol replied quietly, "Not because I'm the strongest or the fastest, but because I learned quickly." On the desk between them, a hologram showed the Empire's 10 warriors. Each one looked more impressive than the last. The first was tall and silver-skinned, with the power to control gravity. The second had eyes that glowed with telepathic energy. The third could change shape at will. The Empire is broadcasting their warriors' training sessions across the galaxy, Jai-Yun said, pointing to the hologram. They want everyone to see their power. They think they're showing strength, but they're giving us exactly what we need. Hansol watched the warriors train. Each one fought differently, used different strategies. Most soldiers would see this and feel afraid. Hansol saw it and started planning. "They're making a mistake," Hansol said. "Each warrior is showing their best moves, their favorite attacks. They don't realize they're giving away their secrets." General Jai-Yun smiled. This was exactly why they had chosen Hansol. The door opened, and Major Sunmei walked in quickly. "General, Admiral Do-hyun is demanding to speak with you. He's not happy about our response." The large screen on the wall lit up, showing the Admiral's angry face. His perfect uniform couldn't hide how upset he was. "This is an insult," he shouted. "We send our 10 greatest warriors, and you respond with one human." General Jai-Yun stood calmly. "You offered a challenge, Admiral. We accepted. The rules didn't say how many champions we could send." "This is not a game," Do-hyun said, his voice getting louder. "Each of our warriors has powers your human cannot imagine. They have trained for years. They have won battles across the galaxy." Hansol stepped forward, standing next to General Jai-Yun. The Admiral's eyes narrowed as he looked at Earth's chosen champion. "This is your warrior?" he asked, almost laughing. "This is who you send to face the Empire's finest?" "Yes," Jai-Yun said simply. "This is humanity's champion." Admiral Do-hyun shook his head. "Look at my warriors," he said, and the screen split to show the Empire's champions training. They were smashing through walls, lifting enormous weights, moving faster than the eye could follow. One warrior turned an entire training room to ice. Another created fire with a wave of his hand. A third became invisible and reappeared across the room. The display of power was meant to intimidate, but Hansol just watched quietly, studying each movement, each technique. Where others saw impossible powers, Earth's champion saw patterns to learn, weaknesses to remember. "The combat begins in 3 days," Admiral Do-hyun said. "Your champion will face our warriors one after another. There will be no rest between fights, no time to recover." "We understand," General Jai-Yun replied. 3 days is plenty of time." After the Admiral's image disappeared, Major Sunmei turned to Hansol. "Are you afraid?" she asked softly. Hansol smiled for the first time. "No, the Empire thinks they're showing us their strength. But with every display, with every practice fight they broadcast, they're giving me the tools I need to beat them." General Jai-Yun nodded. The Empire's warriors were powerful, but they had stopped learning long ago. They relied on their special abilities, their trained moves. They had forgotten the most important lesson. True strength wasn't about having power. It was about knowing how to use it. Master Taiwan's training facility sat deep underground, away from the Empire's watching eyes. The room was simple: 4 gray walls, a soft floor, and screens showing the Empire's warriors training. In the center of the room, Captain Hansol faced the old master. "You're not here to learn new moves," Taiwan said, his voice quiet but firm. He walked with a slight limp, a reminder of battles long past. "You're here to learn how to learn." Hansol nodded, watching as Master Taiwan pulled up recordings of the Empire's first warrior, the one who could control gravity. On the screen, the silver-skinned alien lifted heavy objects with a wave of his hand. "Tell me what you see," Taiwan ordered. "He moves his left hand before using his power," Hansol said. "There's a delay, about half a second between the movement and the gravity change. Taiwan smiled. Good. Now watch the second warrior, the telepath. The screens changed to show the mind reader in action. Her eyes glowed bright when she used her powers, and her opponents fell to their knees, overwhelmed by her mental attacks. She can't move while she's attacking minds, Han Sol observed, and she has to face her target directly. For hours, they studied each warrior, not to copy their moves. That was impossible. Instead, they looked for patterns, for the small signs that came before each attack, for the moments when each warrior was weakest. The Empire thinks power comes from special abilities, Taiwan said, stopping the recordings. They forgot that humans survived on Earth without any powers at all. We faced stronger, faster predators and lived. Do you know why? Han Sol thought for a moment. Because we learned from every hunt, every fight. We got better each time. Exactly. Taiwan pressed a button, and training robots emerged from the walls. Now let's practice what you've learned. The robots were programmed to fight like the Empire's warriors. The first one mimicked the gravity controller, lifting objects to throw them. Han Sol watched for the left-hand movement, dodged, and closed the distance before the robot could attack again. Good, Taiwan called out. But the real warrior will be stronger, faster. You must be better. They trained until Han Sol could spot the smallest signs before each attack, until dodging became automatic, until each move flowed naturally into the next. In the observation room above, General Jiayun watched with Major Sunmei. The Empire broadcasts their warriors' training to scare us, Sunmei said, but they don't understand what humans do with fear. Jiayun nodded. We turn it into knowledge. Each broadcast shows us more about how they fight. Their warriors are practicing their strongest moves, but Han Sol is learning their weaknesses. Below, Han Sol faced 3 robots at once, each fighting with different powers. Where most soldiers would be overwhelmed, Earth's champion adapted, using one robot's attacks to disrupt another's, turning their strengths against each other. Master Taiwan isn't teaching fighting styles, Jiayun explained. He's teaching Han Sol how to learn faster, how to spot patterns, how to think 3 moves ahead. The Empire's warriors have never needed to change their methods. They've always been strong enough to win. But that's their weakness. The day's training ended as the sun set above ground. Han Sol was tired but steady, already planning for tomorrow's practice. The Empire's warriors might be powerful, but they were predictable. And in 3 days, they would learn that predictability was a dangerous weakness when fighting a human. Master Taiwan watched his student leave, then turned to the observation window. General, he called out, I think the Empire is about to learn a very important lesson about humanity. What's that? Jiayun asked. That it's not the strongest who survive, Taiwan said with a smile. It's those who adapt the fastest. The Empire's arena was enormous, with seats for thousands of spectators from across the galaxy. The ceiling opened to the stars above, and massive screens showed close-up views of the fighting area. Captain Han Sol stood alone in the center, looking small against the vast space. Admiral Du Hyun's voice boomed through the arena. The first combat will begin. Presenting Kyorin, Master of Gravity. The silver-skinned warrior stepped forward, his footsteps heavy in the quiet arena. He was twice Han Sol's size, and his metallic skin gleamed under the bright lights. He raised his left hand, and Han Sol felt the air grow heavy. Your human cannot even stand properly. Kyorin laughed as Han Sol dropped to one knee. The gravity around Earth's champion had doubled, then tripled. But Han Sol wasn't fighting the increased gravity. Instead, Earth's champion watched Kyorin's left hand, counting the seconds. Half a second after each movement, the gravity changed. It was just like in the training videos. Suddenly, Han Sol sprinted forward. Kyorin's eyes widened in surprise. He raised his hand to increase the gravity again, but Han Sol had already counted to half a second and jumped. The gravity change missed, and Hansol landed right in front of the startled warrior. One quick strike was all it took. Kyorin fell, unconscious before he hit the ground. The arena was silent. Then Admiral Do-hyun's voice rang out again, angrier now. Second combat. Min-ji, the mind reader. The telepath stepped into the arena, her eyes already glowing with power. She faced Hansol directly, and everyone could feel the wave of mental energy she released. But Hansol was already moving sideways, staying out of her direct line of sight. Min-ji turned to face Earth's champion, but she had to stop walking to use her powers, just like in the training. Stand still, she shouted, frustrated. Each time she stopped to attack, Hansol was already moving to a new position. Finally, Min-ji made a mistake. She tried to walk while attacking. In that moment of broken concentration, Hansol struck. The telepath collapsed, her mental powers useless against physical speed and precision. Admiral Do-hyun's voice shook with rage. Third combat. Shinwoo, the shapeshifter. The third warrior could change his form at will. He became a giant, then a fast-running animal, then a flying creature. But Hansol saw what the Empire had missed. Shinwoo had to pause for a brief moment between each change. The shapeshifter attacked from above as a winged beast, then immediately tried to change into a powerful ground creature. In that split second of transformation, Hansol struck. Shinwoo fell, locked in mid-change. 3 of the Empire's greatest warriors were defeated, each in less than 5 minutes. The audience was completely silent. In the observation room, General Jae-yun smiled. The Empire's warriors were powerful, but they relied too much on their special abilities. They didn't understand that humans had spent thousands of years learning to fight creatures stronger and faster than themselves. Hansol stood calmly in the arena, breathing steady and controlled. Earth's champion hadn't used any special powers or amazing abilities, just careful observation, quick thinking, and the human talent for finding weaknesses. Admiral Do-hyun's voice had lost its confidence when he announced, "There will be a short break before the next combat." As medical teams carried away the fallen warriors, Hansol looked up at the Admiral's viewing box. The message was clear. Humans didn't need special powers to be dangerous. They just needed a chance to learn how to win. Admiral Do-hyun paced in his private chamber aboard the Empire's flagship. The screens around him showed replays of the first 3 fights. Commander Yoo-jin, his youngest tactical officer, studied the recordings carefully. "It's impossible," Do-hyun said, his voice tight with anger. "How did one human defeat our 3 warriors so quickly?" Yoo-jin pointed to one of the screens. "Look at how the human fights each warrior differently. Against Kyorin, they counted the time between hand movement and gravity change. Against Min-ji, they never stood still. Against Shinwoo, they struck during transformation." "What are you saying?" the Admiral asked, stopping his pacing. "They're learning, adapting," Yoo-jin explained. "Each fight makes them stronger. Our warriors train for years to perfect one fighting style. But this human, they create new strategies during the actual fight." Down in the arena, the 4th warrior stepped forward. His name was HFY, and he could create force fields of pure energy. No one had ever broken through his defenses. "Fourth combat begins." The announcement echoed through the arena. HFY immediately surrounded himself with glowing barriers. He smiled confidently. His force fields were perfect, or so he thought. But Hansol saw something different. Each force field lasted exactly 10 seconds before HFY had to create a new one. There was a tiny gap, less than a second, between the old field disappearing and the new one forming. 9 seconds. 10. Hansol moved. The force field vanished, and before the new one could appear, Earth's champion struck. HFY fell, his perfect defense broken by perfect timing. 5th combat. Jin-ae, master of elements. The 5th warrior could control fire and ice. She sent waves of flame across the arena, then covered the ground with slick ice. But Hansol had seen how she needed one hand for fire and one for ice. She couldn't use both at the same time. When Jin'e raised both hands to combine her powers, Hansol attacked. She couldn't maintain her elemental control while defending herself. The fifth warrior fell like the others. In his chamber, Admiral Du-hyun watched in growing horror. Commander Yu-jin typed quickly on her datapad. "Admiral," she said, her voice urgent, "our combat prediction programs can't track the human's fighting style. It keeps changing, evolving. Each victory teaches them new techniques." "Impossible," Du-hyun whispered. "No warrior can learn that quickly." "Humans are different," Yu-jin said, showing him the data. "They don't rely on special powers or trained moves. They adapt. Every failure makes them stronger. Every success teaches them more." The Admiral stared at the screens. 5 of his greatest warriors were defeated, each by a different strategy. The human hadn't used any special powers, hadn't shown any amazing abilities. They had simply watched, learned, and found a way to win. "Commander," Du-hyun said slowly, "what are the chances our remaining warriors can win?" Yu-jin looked at her calculations, then at the human standing calmly in the arena. "The human is stronger now than when they started. They've learned from each fight. Our remaining warriors," she paused, "they don't stand a chance." Admiral Du-hyun felt a chill run down his spine. The Empire had sent its greatest warriors to demonstrate its power. Instead, they were learning a terrifying lesson about humanity's true strength. The 6th warrior entered the arena with thundering steps. His name was Ha-won, and he could control sound itself. The crowd fell silent as he approached Hansol, who stood quietly in the center of the fighting space. "Sixth combat begins." The announcement rang through the arena. Ha-won didn't waste time. He released a wave of sound so powerful it could shatter stone. But Hansol was already moving, having noticed how the air rippled slightly before each sound attack. Earth's champion rolled to the side as the sound wave crashed into the arena wall. In the observation room, General Jae-yun watched with Major Sunmei. "Look at how Hansol fights now," Jae-yun said. "They're using what they learned from the gravity warrior to sense changes in the air." The sound warrior grew frustrated. Each attack missed as Hansol predicted the timing perfectly. When Ha-won tried to create a continuous sound barrier, Hansol used the same tactic that had defeated the force field warrior, timing the attack between pulses. Ha-won fell. His own power turned against him by careful observation and precise timing. 7th combat. Yi-jun, Master of Shadows. The 7th warrior seemed to melt into the darkness, becoming one with the shadows around the arena. But Hansol remembered how the shapeshifter had needed time to change forms. The shadow warrior would need time to shift between solid and shadow form too. Hansol's first few strikes passed through empty shadows. But Earth's champion was learning, watching how the darkness moved, seeing patterns in the way light bent around Yi-jun's form. There was a moment, just before each attack, when the shadow warrior had to become solid. In that brief moment of vulnerability, Hansol struck. The Shadow Master fell, unable to maintain his darkness in unconsciousness. Admiral Du-hyun watched from his chamber, his face pale. Commander Yu-jin's data pad showed complex patterns of fighting styles and adaptations. "Admiral," she said, her voice filled with awe, "the human isn't just winning fights. They're taking techniques from each warrior and combining them in new ways. They used the gravity warrior's air sensitivity to detect the sound warrior's attacks. They applied the timing strategy from the force field battle to defeat the Shadow Master." "You mean?" Du-hyun started. "Each victory makes them more dangerous," Yu-jin confirmed. "They're not just learning how to defeat each warrior. They're learning how to use what they learn in new ways. Our warriors have trained their entire lives to master one power. This human has learned something from each of them in minutes." Down in the medical bay, the defeated warriors were recovering. Minji, the telepath, opened her eyes and spoke softly to the others. "When I tried to read their mind during our fight, I saw something strange. They weren't thinking about how to beat me. They were thinking about how to learn from me. Hyorin nodded from his bed. That's why they let me increase gravity at first. They wanted to feel exactly how it worked. They turned our demonstration of power into a lesson. In the arena, Hansol stood ready for the next fight. Earth's champion looked different now. More confident, more capable. Each victory had added new understanding, new techniques to use. The Empire had sent its warriors to show their strength, but instead they had become teachers for humanity's adaptive capability. Admiral Do-hyun looked at his final 3 warriors, including his greatest champion, and for the first time in his long career he felt afraid. Not of losing, but of what they had awakened in their attempt to prove humanity weak. The 8th warrior stepped into the arena. Her name was Myran, and she could move at incredible speeds. She circled Hansol so fast that she became just a blur of motion. The crowd held their breath, wondering how Earth's champion would face this new challenge. But Hansol stood perfectly still, eyes closed, listening. The gravity warrior's power had taught them about air movement. The telepath's attacks had shown them how to sense approaching danger. Hansol combined these lessons, feeling the subtle changes in the air as Myran moved. When the speed warrior attacked, Hansol stepped aside at exactly the right moment. Myran crashed into the arena wall, surprised that anyone could predict her movements. Before she could recover, Hansol struck with precise timing, learned from the force field warrior's defeat. The 9th warrior, Daho, possessed incredible strength. He could lift entire buildings and break through the strongest materials. But Hansol had learned from the shapeshifter that size and strength had patterns. Every powerful movement needed preparation. Daho swung his massive fists, each punch strong enough to end the fight. But Hansol saw the tiny movements that came before each attack, just like with the gravity warrior. Earth's champion dodged each blow, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When Daho used his full strength in one massive attack, Hansol used his own momentum against him. The strong warrior fell, defeated by his own power. Then came the final warrior. Some men stepped forward, and the arena grew quiet. He was different from the others. He was human once, before he left Earth to join the Empire. They had enhanced his body and mind, making him stronger than any normal human could be. So, some men said, his voice carrying across the silent arena, Earth sends one ordinary human to face me, their greatest warrior who chose to become better. Hansol faced him calmly. You chose to be changed. I chose to learn. Some men attacked with incredible skill. He had all the Empire's enhancements, but still remembered how humans fought. He was faster than Myran, stronger than Daho, and could adapt his fighting style like Hansol. The battle was intense. Some men used every advantage his enhanced body gave him. But with each exchange, Hansol learned more. Earth's champion combined lessons from every previous fight. The timing of the force fields, the prediction of the sound attacks, the patterns of the shapeshifter. Why won't you fall? Some men shouted, frustrated as another perfect attack missed its target. Because humans don't need to be changed to become stronger, Hansol replied, moving with the grace learned from fighting the Shadow Warrior. We just need a chance to learn. The final battle reached its peak. Some men gathered all his enhanced power for one decisive attack. But Hansol saw the preparation, just like with the Gravity Warrior. Felt the change in the air, like with the Sound Master. Timed the response perfectly, like against the force fields. When some men's attack came, Hansol was ready. Earth's champion turned the enhanced warrior's strength against him, using every lesson learned from the previous fights. Some men, for all his improvements, couldn't match the natural human ability to adapt and grow. The Empire's greatest warrior fell. The arena was completely silent as Hansol stood alone, undefeated. In just one day, one ordinary human had overcome 10 of the galaxy's most powerful warriors, not through special powers or enhancements, but through humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn, adapt, and grow stronger with every challenge. Admiral Du Hyun stood in Earth's Defense Council chamber, looking very different from the confident leader who had issued the challenge days ago. His perfect uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles showed under his eyes. Across the table, General Ji-Yun sat calmly, with Captain Hansol standing quietly beside her. "I don't understand," Du Hyun said, his voice tired. "We sent our greatest warriors. Each one had powers beyond normal limits. How did one human defeat them all?" "You still think this was about strength?" Ji-Yun replied. She pressed a button, and the room's screen showed recordings of each fight. "You never understood what makes humans different." Hansol stepped forward. "Every warrior you sent was powerful, but they all had the same weakness. They stopped learning. They thought their special abilities were enough." Commander Yoo-jin, who had asked to attend this meeting, nodded in understanding. "But you kept learning, even during the fights. Each victory taught you something new." "Exactly," Ji-Yun said. "The Empire makes its warriors stronger by giving them special powers. Humans become stronger by learning from every challenge, every failure, every success." Do Hyun watched the recordings again. Now he saw what he had missed before. The human fighter didn't just defeat each warrior, they learned from them. Each victory added new skills, new understanding. By the final fight, Hansol was using techniques learned from all the previous battles. "When you announced this challenge," Ji-Yun continued, "you thought you were giving us a chance to prove our strength. Instead, you gave us a chance to show why forcing humanity to join the Empire would be a terrible mistake." "What do you mean?" Du Hyun asked. "Look at Sung-min," Hansol said, pointing to the recording of the final fight. "He was human once. The Empire made him stronger, faster, better than normal humans. But he lost something important, the need to keep learning, to keep adapting." In the medical bay below, the defeated warriors were talking among themselves. They had never lost before, and now they were doing something they hadn't done in years, learning from their defeat. "The Empire's greatest strength is its diversity," Ji-Yun explained. 10,000 worlds, each with its own powers and abilities. But you try to control everything, to make everyone follow your way. Humans need freedom to grow, to change, to become better in our own way." Do Hyun was quiet for a long time. Finally, he looked at Hansol. "You weren't chosen because you were Earth's strongest warrior, were you?" "No," Hansol replied. "I was chosen because I could learn the fastest. Every human has this ability, to observe, to adapt, to improve. It's not a special power, it's just who we are." The Admiral stood straight, looking more like his old self. "In all the Empire's history, no world has ever made us reconsider our ways. Until now." He pressed a button on his uniform, and his voice carried to every ship in orbit. "By my authority as Admiral of the Imperial Fleet, I withdraw our demand for Earth to join the Empire." General Ji-Yun smiled. "Perhaps instead of trying to rule us, you could learn from us, just as we could learn from you. As equals." Do Hyun looked at the recordings one last time. 10 of the galaxy's greatest warriors, defeated by one human's ability to learn and adapt. "Yes," he said quietly, "perhaps it's time for the Empire to learn something new." As the Admiral left to return to his ship, Commander Yoo-jin stayed behind. "You knew this would happen," she said to Ji-Yun. "You turned our challenge into a lesson. That's what humans do best." Ji-Yun replied. "We take every challenge and turn it into a chance to grow stronger. Not through special powers or enhancements, but through our endless ability to learn, adapt, and become better."